So this past week has been full. We've got a couple of kiddos in sports, just short little seasons in the spring. Our son Silas is playing some baseball. And so we've had a fun time now that the weather is finally warmed up to go sit outside and enjoy some fresh air. And so we spent all day Saturday at a baseball tournament, which was a lot of fun. And our nephew, who we don't get to see that often, works in the city that we were at the tournament, and so we were able to sit and watch baseball and talk with Gabe. So that was just a huge blessing. And then our daughter Sadie was finishing up a volleyball season, a little 10-year-old girl volleyball season, which is lots of fun to watch. She enjoys it enormously, I think, because her big sister Maggie is such a big volleyball fan and enjoys the sport so much. So it was a fun week of getting work done and school done, and then enjoying some spring weather finally. If you're from Minnesota, you know what I mean when I add the word finally. May is here and spring came with it, so it was tons of fun. But in the middle of my week last week, I know that every family deals with it, the navigating of responsibilities in a home. And for us, kitchen duty and who or what team is going to be taking care of the kitchen and who left what mess and all of those things are sometimes a daily debate. Now, we used to have assigned jobs at every meal where different kids did certain things, and that was their responsibility for every meal. That worked great when I had kids that were always home. Now that I have kiddos that have sports and jobs and are adults but still living at home, and all the different things, the comings and goings of that makes scheduling who's doing what for meals challenging. About a year ago, we started signing up for meals, and I have a calendar and people would just sign their name up for which meal they could do. They were responsible for a certain number of meals, and that's worked pretty well for the most part. And I add in the most part because last week I got so tired of the wrangling over the details of whose job or whose responsibility it was to do which part of the kitchen, or specifically, hey, they made that after lunch and now it's supper and I am not washing that pan. And there's some responsibility for the one that made it to clean up after themselves, but I was growing weary of the debate. So there was one day when I was just, as a mom, like, I am about ready to have everybody pay me $100 and I'll do it myself, just because I didn't want to anymore negotiate all of the, I don't know if negotiate's the right word, but barter the responsibilities or play mediator over one more meal or kitchen responsibility. So as I was at my breaking point, husband was my knight in shining armor, and he called a family meeting and just gathered all the kids around, and he began talking about culture and about how our desire as the Clausen family, that our Clausen family culture would really be matching to the culture of the kingdom of heaven. And he began to talk to the kiddos about what our culture has looked like over kitchen cleanup, and over some of the issues that we'd been having about people really wanting to make sure it was fair and equitable, and being offended if they didn't feel like such and so person was carrying or pulling in their weight. And he began to kind of just unearth some of those things. And then he read to the kids Philippians 2, and it talks about Philippians 2 verse 3. It says, "Let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind let each esteem others better than himself. Let each of you look out not only for his own interests, but also for the interest of others." And really, I just was like so in love at that moment as my husband was releasing this wisdom over my kids, because really that was the root issue, is that we were as a family seeking our own personal interests. The one that wasn't taking care of their mess was being selfish, and the ones that were being refusing to help their sibling was also not considering that person is better than themselves. Now, it doesn't mean they are better, but when we set ourselves in a position of humility to consider them as better, that means then we are happy to help and happy to serve and happy to step in. And when somebody has something that comes up, we don't have to take offense. Because that was what we were beginning to see in our kids, is the offended responses that were out of proportion to what actually happened. And that's what happens when we layer up offense upon offense upon offense. We're like, that person just is never carrying their weight. And those offenses become a barrier to the relationship. And so we had a good chat with the kids, and I went from, being a mom ready to blow my gasket to like a wife with, doe eyes at her husband going, "You are my knight in shining armor." And, I love how the Holy Spirit can come in that place of wisdom and really share exactly what we need in those times in our families. The word prudence, I've learned this week, actually means practical wisdom. And that's part of what the Holy Spirit does for us, is he shows us what it looks like to be prudent in our homes. And sometimes he has mom, speaks to moms. Sometimes he speaks to dads. And as we are listening for his wisdom to navigate those challenges that just come from all living together under one roof, needing to get one group or body of work done together, having the Holy Spirit whisper his prudence and his wisdom into our ears, and then listening and executing it, that is how the kingdom of heaven comes to earth.